Footy.
Yeah, we sure do. The Giants taking on the Blues from Giants Stadium Sunday afternoon. Footy, Triple M, McDonald's and Ream, hot water. We rock footy, and as I welcome this crew around the table, the first one is a 287-game star, Lee Montagna from the Saints.
Hello, Browny. Nice to see you here. And the later start means you can host from the start today. Another good Sunday footy show for you. Matty Lloyd was strong on his comments about the Bombers.
It was a big Sunday footy show. A lot of conversation around the Bombers. We'll get into that a little bit later with Jay-Z's 3. But Ross Lyon, your former coach, is right next to you. Could have had the job at Carlton last year, and now a lot of other jobs come up.
This is the only job that pays me.
Don't tell me.
I'm an M's man. The Velvet Sledgehammer was in fine form. I loved it this morning. He sort of couldn't contain his passion for his club.
He was
I loved it.
And you know what he said in the pre-show meeting? He said he didn't want to go too hard today, and then he brought out the full-on Velvet Sledgehammer.
And I love it. You still clip chompers. It was fantastic.
And the man who is the Herald Sun's finest, Jay-Z Clark.
Yes, hello, Brownie. We've been talking all week about sprays, haven't we? And David Noble being under the pump. I tell you what, the coach delivered a spray yesterday, which worked a treat. We'll get to that a little bit later.
And the greatest player in the game's history. You just asking Wayne Carey.
I did. It's funny you say that, Brownie, because I was watching your show this morning and I saw Lloydie, and I know he did that big bump on Sawley, but let's be honest, he couldn't knock poo off a rocking horse. Lloydie wasn't regarded as a tough guy. I mean, he ran through a few blokes when they had their head over the footy, but I wouldn't regard. I don't think he did actually scare someone if he walked up toe to toe. And the other thing that I want to say, Brownie, is as my missus walked through this morning, and I had the footy show on as I do when I have time, and they're about to go to Luna Park, and she just listened to a little bit of it, and she said, very self-indulgent, this show, isn't it? They just talk about themselves. And I said, they do, but I can't talk.
Did you say go and listen to 5 hours of the Sunday run?
I did
and
say,
that's what you'll get?
I did say our radio is very...
We've got a massive show coming up. Jay-Z's Big 3. Truth or line about... maybe
some sprays. Talk about big coaches' sprays. We might have to touch on with Rossi
giving
Lyon
a spray.
about whether he's ever apologised for any of his sprays he's given.
The Sunday Rub quiz is back. Duck is leading the Sunday quiz at the moment. We've got Jason McCartney, assistant coach at the Giants, Hitch a Caravan, and also Ash Hansen from Carlton as the assistant coach. But it was during the week where I got a phone call from Triple M a couple of times from the beautiful Jill Good, and she was asking me if I could come on the midweek rub. Obviously, JB doesn't do the show that often anymore. It is his show that he gets paid big money for. But I tune in, and all I hear is Daisy and this man, Joey, to my left. But I also hear Duck. So I was going to replace Duck this week because he's going in and he's told everybody, geez, I'm going in for an operation this week. Got to have my shoulder done and I'll be able to get back into tip-top gear. But the thing that I found funny during the week on our WhatsApp group was the fact that Jay-Z, on 4 different occasions, asked Duck how the operation went, how he was. Are you okay, Duck? There was zero response. Just did not even honour it with a response.
Why do you think, you idiot? Because I was as flat as a tack. My emotions went up, down, some frustration. The night before you're about to go in and have a serious operation, I got told by my insurance company that I was not insured to have that operation. So you could have any operation I wanted except for a replacement.
Yeah, but by the third time Jay-Z asked how you were going, he was concerned for you. He could have said, Jay-Z, I didn't have it done. Yeah. Poor Jay-Z was left hanging, concerned again.
Why couldn't they insure it?
To be honest with you, I probably had a lot more messages than just from you nitwits. And on a scale of 1 to 10,
hang on.
That particular group, not you, Ross. No, that particular group, and letting them know about a personal situation, which I'm still a little bit emotional about, as you can see. But just read the fine print of your insurance.
Why did they knock you back?
Because they said I was not insured for any joint replacement. So I've got top cover, but not joint replacement.
AFLPA will cover this. Surely they get $60 million a year. 30 million. One of the greatest players to ever play. And what, you can't get an operation in your shoulder? We need to.
You know what?
A GoFundMe page for the cut.
I said to a mate of mine, Julian Kersner, who's a good mate who you've met. Yeah. Actually, most of you boys have met Julian, and I said, and he played 4 games. And
how many?
He played 4 games.
Forgettable.
And guess what? he gets the same amount from the Players Association as what I do for an operation, and he just thought it should be a little bit of pro rata.
It's all about equality.
Scalable.
Bit of gameplay.
Probably should get a little bit more than
a lot of people
Julian
listen to
gets.
our program. They might be in the backyard. They might be doing some woodwork. They might be in the car. So we have a lot of people right now, and there'll be a lot of people thinking the same thing that I'm going to say. Why wouldn't you pay for it yourself then, you tight
Well, I
ass?
did. Well, hey, funny you say that. I'll tell you why, Brownie.
Well, you haven't had the operation, though, so you haven't paid for it.
I've paid top cover since the age of 16, and I've hardly had, other than when I was playing football, which is very different. But after retiring, I haven't had an operation or used any of my insurance, and I figured I've paid all this insurance. Why the bloody hell now would I go and just fork out a heap of money and pay for it
I like
myself?
you standing on a principle.
Only a nitwit would do that.
I love a principle.
So
what do you
that's
do
why.
now? So what is the
So
process?
the process now, well, hopefully after
Do you get a
this-
waiting
on
period?
radio.
Hopefully, yes. So, no, well, I've got to go in and discuss what a joint replacement insurance looks like, and you take that out and you wait the required time and then get it done.
So-
Well, you
Brand.
clearly need it because a friend of mine, I just went and watched a game of footy with him yesterday. He said, I ran into Wayne Carey. Not Mark
Yeah.
from Wiesel Property Group who I work with, but another friend. And he said, he looks really sore. I said, yeah, well, he had a shoulder replacement during the week. I've walked in today, you haven't had it. So clearly you need it.
No, I do need it, but if I have to wait a year, Brownie, I'll wait a year.
What do they do for the replacement?
It's
'Cause I couldn't explain it.
It's
new
like
in.
a graphite. It's
Replace it.
like
Put it-
graphite.
But what are
Put a
they
new one in.
replacing?
Well,
Okay,
they're-
Jake,
well,
what are they
well,
replacing?
well,
Shoulder socket.
They're replacing the joint, the whole joint.
Well, they don't put a knee in there, do they?
No.
Probably a shoulder.
No, well, what part? Which bit of the shoulder?
The other part.
Hang on. You can giggle. But what's the anatomy of the shoulder, Brownie?
the main part, Ross.
I do
What
know
is
what,
the
the
main
scapula
part?
or
What
the-
is it? What is it,
It's a
genius?
shoulder, Ross.
The shoulder. Is that a leg of lamb?
The other part of it, Ross, is when I
Lamb
actually
shoulder,
Brownie,
boneless.
they've only just started doing shoulders as well. So that, when I obviously I would have been asked about joints. So knees and hips they've been doing forever, but
Yep.
they've just started doing shoulders.
Oh, you don't have to explain to
No,
these
but I
blokes.
do
They all
sound
know.
like-
They're geniuses.
I do sound like an idiot though. I wrote an article. This is the other. I feel like a real loser. I wrote an article for The Age. You would have read it. And, and I was
Probably not.
And I was talking about, but somewhere in the
there's a
article,
paywall.
I talked about how lucky I was, and I've always had private health, and I've got the Players Association, so I'm one of the really lucky ones that can go and have this done.
Everyone deserted
And your
you.
insurance company's deserted you.
what
You know, Damo got scammed. He told us Friday night, 3,000 out of his bank account, and he wouldn't go and name the bank. So I'm sure you're keeping it under wraps with the insurance company.
My insurance company was AIA.
Okay.
I'm happy to say who it was. But the simple facts are, I wasn't insured. They said I wasn't insured for a joint. I was for a reconstruction and everything else. So
how much does it cost, Doug? How much is it? How much is it?
It would have been. I would have had to pay an extra $100, around $100 a month extra on top.
If you had known.
If I had known, and so in other words, an extra $1,000 a year or something like that.
What if you had to pay for it now, new shoulder? What is it? Is it like a
It'd be
lump sum?
30. I don't know.
30 grand?
I don't know.
30K? Would we have to pass the hat around Triple M, or what are we doing, Brad?
Don't worry about
Duck
me,
will be
JC.
fine.
Well, I
That'd be
think,
nice.
I think it's a great thing that Duck's done. It's a community service, so everybody out there now goes
Check.
and looks at their PDS to make sure if I need to get something done, I get it
get it
done.
done.
Well done,
No,
Duck.
He's
It is a
prepped,
bit
though.
of-
Found
no,
out the night before.
It is a reminder. Yeah, that's probably not ideal. Find out the night before, given that I thought I clearly was able to go in. But it is a reminder to check what you are insured for, and that's whether it's house and contents right down to health.
Without patronising, this is an AFLPA step-up opportunity because they support a lot of things and they've got a lot of resources. If you're listening out
Well,
there...
Julian did say
They
he'd
do
be
usually
happy to
get some
give my
funding.
share to his share to me, my mate Julian.
Yeah, we'll all hand it over.
Yeah, all right.
But just to clarify, when Jay-Z texted how you duck,
yeah.
I thought it was about the rig off. I forgot about it.
Advantage to
Yeah.
I thought
Jay-Z
you're
now.
eating well. I was
Yeah.
going to post a lettuce leaf on there.
I've been flat. But I'm all right. I'm back now.
So you're going to start
So
step back
what
to
I'll do
training?
now is, because I'm not having it, I'll get back into training and I'll absolutely flog
What's the
you.
What's the timeline now to getting the shoulder replaced?
Well,
Do you have to do 12 months of your extra cover?
Probably 12 months.
Plenty more Duck stories up after the break. Built tough on Aussie conditions when it comes to water heating. Ask your plumber to install a ream. Jay-Z's Big 3 up after the break for McDonald's Ream Hot Water. Triple M rocks footy. For McDonald's Ream Hot Water, Triple M rocks footy. This is the Sunday Rub, but it's time for...
This is Jay-Z's Big Three.
Yes, it certainly is, Browny, and there's no bigger story in footy today than the Essendon Football Club, who served up, if not one of their worst performances in years, certainly their most soft effort. On the day of their captain's 200th game in Dyson Heppel, they registered 30 tackles in a 58-point loss to Sydney, and that's in a game that Sydney kicked 14-21. So really could have easily been a 100-point loss. So the 30 tackles, that's their lowest in 17 years, since 2005. That was the last time they racked up 30 tackles. And you look at some of these big name and senior midfielders, been talking about for some time now, just didn't show up, as Ben Rutten said in the press conference afterwards. And I'm told that he was even more firm with them after the match. So let's have a listen to Ben Rutten, who was blunt on last night's performance, and then talk about what's next for the Essendon Football Club.
You know, the night, the smaller ground, the opposition demanded a contested pressure tackling game, and we went up for it. There was at times I thought we were too easily kind of derailed off our game, you know, and found it hard to get back. And that's where, in particular, our more senior players, they're the ones that we need to pave the way and shine a light for our younger guys. They didn't do that tonight.
How does the conversation go with the players after that, Ross?
Because I didn't like what I heard there. You know what? Whether it's a big ground, little ground, wet ground, dry ground, it's a contested pressure game. So to put it to the SCG, I think I didn't like hearing that. Can't separate yourself as a coach. Your senior players need to stand up. It looks technical. They look like they're thinking what they've got to do under pressure. It's got to be 1, 2, 3 things. So that's my simple take on it. But they're in a big hole.
Ross? What if Sydney's weakness, Joey? You've done this numerous times on your show. Sydney's weakness this year has been because they've gone through the corridor and they've just turned it over. I don't think I've ever seen a team take as many marks in the corridor, in the centre square. If you could actually get a stat on marks taken in the centre square uncontested, I reckon that would be a world record. What they took, they took over 100 uncontested, full stop. But I would love to get a stat on how many in the centre square, because I reckon it'd have to be 50. So unbelievable.
Can I ask Ross then, as a coach, because clearly Ben Rutten's instructing them to compete and pressure and effort, do you start doubting yourself as a coach and start thinking, these players aren't listening to what I'm saying or aren't doing what I'm saying? When does the coach, or how does a coach reflect on what he's saying is not happening on the field?
Gee whiz, of course you do. Because I couldn't have stuffed it up any more than I did in 2007. And then we turned it around. You're questioning yourself, I think, assistant coaches. I was on air last week. I said their football program over summer and their training drills, because it's really simple. You want them fit, you want them available, and you want them on the same page. Your football program has got to bring to life your game plan. So what I mean by that is the drills you do have got to reflect how you want to play, and you've got to embed that. So it's from the class to the grass. So you can do it all your X and O's and your game plan and vision. But at the end of the day, you walk it through, then you step up, and then you throw the pressure in. But the bottom line is you train how you play. So there's a disconnect between the drills, because if you're saying we're not doing what we want them to do, well, that just means you're not implementing it in your training program to the game under AFL pressure. So that's why we talk about the way you train is the way you play. I think they need to go back and review it and look at their program, and their football program hasn't delivered how they want to play. So, and their ability to handle expectation is poor. They were 2-6 last year. I think 2-4 or 2-6 last year, yep. and they are this year. And then last week they deliver for the quarter when there's no expectation. So they've got some real issues out there that they're dealing with. And as a coach, he wouldn't be sleeping, or I wouldn't be sleeping.
And what wrapped this all up? There was a really insulting moment where Luke Parker wins a hard ball in the middle, goes forward, steps round hind, kicks a goal, and then he mocks Dylan Shield. And you don't see this too often in a football season, but Luke Parker did the sort of shrugged his shoulders, almost like a scaredy cat sort of thing, and he did it 5 or 6 times, and it was embarrassing for Dylan Shield and the Essendon Football Club, and no one stood up. No one stood up for Dylan Shield, Duck.
Dylan Shield should have stood up for himself. I mean, that's been going on forever, that type of stuff. And I was being a little bit facetious about Lloydie. What Lloydie meant was stand up for yourself for one and back, sort of go back at him, at least show a little bit of fire in the belly. And if not, when you do see bloke get sat on his bum, what Lloydie meant was like not go and but at least fly the flag. You've just got to show that you care. There was no care whatsoever for one another last night.
He's a former great of the club, and this is what he actually said this morning.
You never ever want to be walked over in life or disrespected in any way. And I thought Dylan Shield was disrespected in a way you never want to be treated as a footballer. And this was the next contest. I would have ploughed straight through Parker here and got him to the ground and said, you will never, ever treat me like that again. I wouldn't have cared what happened. Dylan Shield isn't that type of player to do it, but I would have loved if someone else did it on his behalf. Yeah. Like Essendon, do you reckon, I think that'll be something that Ben Rutten will show and say, this is how you are viewed, Dylan, and this is how us as a team are being viewed. Yep. Where's the nastiness gone?
Are you suggesting it's time for Essendon to draw a line in the sand?
Yeah, yep, spot on. Spot on. If you can't be talented as a team, the effort doesn't come into it. 30 tackles says it all. The lack of defence says it all. They're too nice. They're too nice, and there's no ruthless streak whatsoever. And I think the side would have loved to have seen him bowl him over.
I had these conversations 2 weeks ago, Ross, before leading, and we heard that they'd had the most honest conversations and they all sat around together and got so much out of it. They responded against the Hawks. Where do you go from there? It's like the David Noble thing. When you apologise, where do you go from there as a group? How do you get yourself up again?
Oh, gee, it's very difficult, Brownie. Those honest conversations need to happen over summer. To do it in season is very difficult. I remember we did some player feedback and we didn't tell the truth to a few individuals. Oh, you're training well, but when they were cruising, and then you blink and you're 2'6", you're 2'7". So, and we talk about connection. Everyone talks about connection and feedback and care, and it's good to laugh and joke. We see Richmond, right? But I know Reece Conker came and he said, everyone talks about that, Ross, but it wasn't playing mini golf. And we had some players that thought, let's have some fun. He goes, it wasn't about fun. We didn't go and play mini golf. The leadership group, and we did 2 team leadership sessions a week. We were only doing one at the Dockers. So they invested heavily in leadership and sharing and feedback. It's not, let's just go and play mini golf. And the other thing is there's other ways to do it. Let's go and have a drink. But I used to talk to the Saints boys. I love you going and having a beer, but it's very hard to sit down and have a beer with someone and enjoy their company if you know they haven't got your back on the footy field. So you got to compete. I said, you can't sit with blokes and have a beer that, because if it starts you can't trust to stand up for you, whether it's on the street or it's on the footy field. So that's the way I used to go. So, how could Essendon share each other's company when they're not having a dip on the field? Like, you couldn't even go and have a beer with each other. I wouldn't do it.
And that's when the problem starts, when they come to fracture. And just back to Lloydie's comments, Duck, who is the player for it? Like, you can't even think of a player at Essendon who would fly the flag. Like, who is that? Is there anyone?
Draper?
Maybe Draper.
Draper. And that's why he's their next captain.
Yeah,
seriously.
So what's the job to pick up Dylan Shield off the floor now? Because he is the face of this, and obviously he's got to do it himself, but he's going to need some help this week. I mean, it's an embarrassing situation that he's been put in. He's a good player. He's a genuinely good player whose form is not warranted at the moment, probably playing great senior football. But when he played at the Giants, he was a jet. He could run and carry. He started well at the Bombers, but now you look at him and he's half the player he was.
Scrap like Parker does.
He's almost got to get off the canvas this week, and I don't know how he does it.
You've got to fight the fight. Yeah, he's got to fight the fight. You got. Are they good enough? I don't know where they sit, but does anyone? I remember Tony Jewell when I was at Richmond, and Tony was a premiership goat fierce, but he walked all the players up to the second tier, and he said, "This is the look your members and supporters have got. They can see if you take a short step. They can see where they're having, and that's all they are. So you have a dip. That's all we wanted from North in the first." Bodies flying, then you can build, but their foundation, but they're capable because they laid 22 tackles in a quarter to get over the line last week. So where does that go? Do they need Draper to be the one all the time? That's the bit I don't understand. But those honest conversations are the ones, and Duck can talk to it better than me.
No, Ross, you're spot on. They had as many tackles last week in the last quarter as what they did in the whole game. And that's why they had the last quarter that they had last week.
And it would be insulting for the captain, Heppel, who's been very loyal and stood by the club throughout some tough times. Dylan Shield had 20 possessions last night, 5 of them kicks, 15 handballs, 69 metres gained, which is ineffective on the football field. But the thing is, they would drop Dylan Shield if they could. They look at their VFL team, got belted by 94 points last weekend, Ross. So you want to bring in someone.
Alex Ferguson, MU, one of the great coaches. And I used to use the quote all the time. Joe will remember it. But we're the experts now, and Monday's experts, they want to talk about, that was his quote, all the experts want to talk about football in abstract terms and tactics. And he was like, men win football games, or women, whatever your team is, right, Jen? Men win football games. Blood, flesh, and spirit, a complementary team. Minimise your teammates' weakness. They help maximise functioning as one. That's what wins games. Like, that's your starting point. And then as you get to the rarefied air system and that comes in. But let's not forget, and that's what they did in the last quarter. It was their spirit and their tenacity the week before that won that game. It wasn't the science works of make sure you protect the corridor and that role and that role. I think we lose sight of that a little bit.
The commitment.
Number 2?
Yes, the coaching merry-go-round is on, of course, with Alistair Clarkson. Clearly in pole position for the GWS job. I don't think he'd put a line through Gold Coast either. Stuart Hughes still, yet to secure his future beyond this year. And I think the Suns would be very interested in Alistair Clarkson. Nathan Buckley last night on Fox Footy ruled himself out of a senior coaching position for 2023, so he can take his magnet off the board. Very happy doing his media commitments at Fox Footy at the moment. But what say you, Ross Lyon? You were raised on the Sunday Footy Show this morning as a contender. Really? For the GWS job, you got any interest in picking the clipboard back up for the Giants, if asked, for next season?
No, I went on this merry-go-round last year. It wasn't a really joyful ride, really. So I think I won't be taking a ticket up on this ride. No, and look, you've got to be all in. I'm certainly not all in as I sit here today.
Just prefer our company, really.
I love the rub.
Better here.
And number 3, Browny, can we move on? Go on.
Joe, can I ask, and I brought this up yesterday, and I hope it didn't come across the wrong way on the Saturday rub, and I said, I just can't understand why James Hird keeps getting thrown up as a possible coach, given how long he's been out of the game. I think it's ludicrous. In actual fact, you would hire Joey before James Hird.
Is that because of the injections program or because he's
been out of the game? No, because he's just been out of the game for so long. He's been out of the game for so long, and he was only a young coach when he went out of the game. So how people are throwing him up as some sort of messiah and a senior coach, and it's nothing against Hird because I love James Hird. He's a fantastic player and he probably could have been a great coach. But given that he's been out of the game for so long, I think it's absolutely ludicrous.
The game changes quickly, doesn't it, Duck?
But 100%.
People ask now, go, did you ever think about going into assistant coaching? I said, well, I reckon that's gone now. You go into media. The inside of a football club, the way they train and play changes so quickly.
You could pick it up. I'm not in your pocket, but yeah, you've got a great footy intellect, and I see you break it down, but getting in, it'd take you a while to get all the pieces and all the drills, and then the grind. I would think he'd want to be like a senior assistant somewhere. I think that'd be his great step.
He never did that.
Do what Voss did.
Yeah, so he never did that even when he had the first job, and now people are saying have this long out and then jump straight back into the hot seat again.
Devil's advocate, though, Doug. Yeah. He has been in the GWS inner sanctum all year. He's been living and breathing it all year.
He's
been doing the leadership.
Part-time leadership.
It's like John Worsfold doing the leadership at Carlton by Zoom.
Sign him up.
Come on, Colonel Mustard, number 3.
We've all jumped on you here.
He has been in there. Number 3, we talked about this.
It's just a rhubarb story that you put his name to it and it blows up. It's just crap. Stop it.
I would love to see him in the game, though.
Yeah.
Because he was a great player and what was unfortunate, everything. Give him the opportunity to work his way back in.
Correct. Commit himself and go back and do an assistant's role under someone and then get back into senior coaching. But stop throwing him up as a possible senior coach straight away.
Does he have unfinished business? I think that'd be a good question.
You'd have to ask him that.
For James Hird, you're right. Okay, number 3, entertaining game at the MCG yesterday. We put this on the table pre-match, Duck. Hawthorn ranked 18th, clearly last in the competition for centre clearances and got absolutely belted out of the middle yesterday. Tom Mitchell was managed. He did not play yesterday. John Newcombe and Jager O'Meara, though, were both there. This is Sam Mitchell on his centre clearance issues, which are causing him clear headaches.
He's an important part of the midfield mix. I thought Connor Nash coming back into the side really helped us in that area. So, Tom will come back into the side next week and he'll be better for the run and he'll be fresher and feeling a bit more on top of the ground. I think his centre bounce numbers weren't as strong over the last few weeks, so we're looking for him to go back in there this week and, we go down to Tassie against Brisbane and get back on the horse and go again. So we're looking to make some improvement around centre bounce. You can't afford to have it like that again.
Joey, he's playing the long game, Sam Mitchell. He could be playing O'Meara and Mitchell every centre bounce. He's not. He's giving the kids, Ward, Newcombe, some exposure in the middle, hurting him in the short term. You think it's the right move in the long term for the Hawks?
Well, he's got to find a balance, but no doubt you've got to evolve. You can't just keep putting Mitchell and O'Meara there if he thinks they're not really part of their future going forward. So he's giving the kids opportunity. They're not good enough. They're coming up. Think about it. Most teams' midfields are pretty good. So Hawthorn, have probably got you would have to say one of the worst midfields in the competition. They've got to develop more. They know that. Newcomb's a good player, but the rest are coming. Warple's been off. I'm not sure what's happened to James Warple since
he was
won
off
the BNF.
last year.
Yeah, since the BNF, he's had 2.5 years
I think
now.
as the game has opened up, he was a congestion beast. There's less congestion, less rolling maul. It doesn't suit him. Surprisingly, Mitchell managed round 8. He must be sore. I know he had a bad broken leg, but he's a Brownlow medalist.
Yeah. Yeah, and he had a good. And there were some games we gave him best on ground. One game we did Duck earlier in the year where he had a real big influence in the second half. So he has played some good footy, but I think he was crook. They said last week he was maybe not feeling. He'd been a bit crook. So that's
he
why
didn't look fit.
No.
There's a bit to like in front and behind the ball for them.
Yep.
So if they could get their midfield to an A grade level as quick as they can, I think they'll compete pretty quickly.
Richmond got a huge game against Essendon, the Dreamtime at the G on Saturday night. Tom Lynch, an incident with opponent who ran in, was it Jarman Impey, will be looked at. I think he's going to be lucky. I think he might get away with it.
No, Impey slipped over. Impey slipped and lowered and ran into
Toby
it.
Green did exactly the same thing on Dangerfield last year.
Paul Green was a little harsh, little worse.
It was exactly. You don't want to see somebody miss a game for that, but there's a precedent there. Toby Green. I hope Tom Lynch plays. He's been the best forward in the comp for the last 3 weeks, and he's straightened them up. And how important is it, Duck, when someone can take a contested mark ahead of the football, and then the ball doesn't hit the ground level, so it's not streaming out of your defensive 50.
Well, the one down the line is the most important mark in the game. But you're right, and the only reason I haven't seen that incident because your thing we didn't get a replay yesterday while we were watching the game, so a bit hard to.
Well, I saw it. He had
incident.
his head over the ball, picking it up. His peripheral caught the player. Who was it? Impey coming in.
Jarman Impey.
And he just raised his forearm to protect himself. But Jarman Impey actually went low, slipped over.
I think
he should have hit him in the knee or the. Yeah, I think he should get off.
I was looking at the Harvey Norman for 10 minutes.
Yeah, how's it different to the
surely the
Toby Green
replay's
one,
coming.
I think it was Green looked at Dangerfield and came in probably with a bit more momentum, where Lynch was over the ball, side on.
Bit of
not
Toby
really
Green
looking.
tax, you reckon?
Tom
Lynch has got a history of being clumsy, though.
Very similar. You're right about that. I think
I hope he gets off.
I reckon he will get off. Noah Bolter, hamstring. Browny going to be out for 3 or 4. It's going to change the defensive mix. Maybe Josh Gibkiss comes in. Robbie Tarrant also waiting in the wings at the Tigers.
He's away to a flyer, Jay-Z. It takes a confident man to wear a mustard shirt in here. Truth or Line is up next, giving a spray. We've all copped one. This is Triple M Sunday Rub. For McDonald's Ream Hot Water. Triple M rocks footy.
So off the back of David Noble giving his players a spray and then realising he probably was a bit harsh and have to apologise to the group, we thought, well, it's a great time to ask Ross Lyon whether he had to apologise at all, whether he thought maybe he went a bit harsh with some of his sprays. And also what brought this to my attention was during the week, Lachie Neale was on AFL 360 and he just gave a little anecdote of when he caught one of his early sprays.
His direction and his stern words made me a better player quicker than what I would have been able to do and figure out myself. So I can remember one, he told me to run a 400 and take the pumpkin off my head and said, I think I'm Robert Harvey already, and I hadn't even played a game. So I've certainly had a couple of good ones.
That's a common one. I'll take the pumpkin off the head. But the one about playing like Robert Harvey, there's a little one, Jimmy Gwilt, one day. You had to go at him. Really? Had to go at him at halftime because he was trying to kick these.
Jimmy Gwilt.
Jimmy Gwilt was trying to kick these.
Can you ever go at Jimmy?
He was kicking these laser bullets, these real low laser bullets out of the back half, and he might have turned a few over. And you've given him the old, who do you think you are, Bobby Skilton? And Jimmy walked out of the team meeting and he looked at the boys. He said, "Who's Bobby Skilton?" So you've been known to give a few. So what I want to, have you ever regretted?
Hang on, I've reflected.
Have
I've
you ever
got
regretted on a
300
few?
games, 5 opportunities game day. I look back on those 1,500 moments and I'm really comfortable with them all, Joe.
You think you're okay? Because what I did is I sort of reached out to a few of your past players and thought, let's find out if any of them If any of them thought you're a bit harsh, and the first one that stood out was Matthew Pavlich. I can't believe this is like Bambi.
You know what? I don't think
Matthew
go
Pavlich.
Pav.
Started the
So
top.
Pav said to me, ask Ross Lyon about the time. They were playing a game up at the Gold Coast. So the conditions there, a bit humid, and it can get a little bit sweaty and muddy. And at half time, Rossi, I think you were still in front, but as you do,
we're down 21 points, Joey.
Rossi, I think, remembers. And
Get it right,
you're
Joe.
giving all the boys a spray. You're going through them all, and then you look at Matthew Pavlich, and he's got he's looking pristine. His jumper's clean, not an ounce of sweat on him. And you've given him the old spray. Look at you. You're looking pristine. How about you get down and dirty as the captain? Little did you know, just before that, Pav had gone in, changed his jumper, put a fresh jumper on, and towed himself down, got himself feeling much better for the second half. And Rossi's ripped into him for not having an ounce of dirt or sweat on him, thinking he'd done nothing.
Yeah, and have a look at you, Pav. You look pristine, not a bead of sweat on you. How about you leave from the front?
Did you feel bad about that one when you found out afterwards he'd had a freshen
Chris
up?
Bond, because we were coming down the lift, right? So 2012, first year, it was early. We might have been 3-4. Gold Coast hadn't beaten anyone for 10 years. And we're 21 down. It was hot as I reckon I had a migraine. We're in the lift, the lift up at Metricon. And Chris Bond looks at me and goes, oh, geez, we're in a bit of trouble here. I was like, oh, God. So desperate times, desperate measures. The 8 times All-Australian. He'd never been clipped before. I thought I'll start at the top. And then after the game, you come in relief. You thought, I think we won by 5 points. I think Jonathan Griffin took a contested mark. I love Griffo. And then Bondi come up, he goes, look, really good result, but I reckon you find the skipper and just have a quiet word because he had a shower and full change his kid at half time. But Pav loved it. Pav was good. Folklore, that one.
Then I got a text. The one who was a bit of a whipping boy of yours, David Armitage, he did cop a few sprays, but there was one time at St Kilda, he's come off early in the third quarter and he's come off cramping early in the third. So Ross Lyon's gone.
Let me correct, first quarter, Joe.
First quarter.
First quarter.
You don't miss anything.
MCG against the Pies.
The razor sharp mind.
So Ross, he's got into the phone. Said, "Get Armo on the phone, right?" Because he's screaming, "Get him on the phone." If I find out you've been socialising too much, chasing a bit of skirt, going out drinking, you will never play for this footy club again. Thinking that obviously his professionalism has been right off for him to be cramping.
In the first quarter, 15 minutes in, Armour. And he had a reputation as a young buck
he
early.
Did like going
but
out
we
a
love
little bit.
Armour. Yeah.
But then he's come in at half time and you've spoken to the docs and you've realised that because Armour had the socks up, he put the tape under the socks to try and keep the socks up, and the circulation cut off the blood to his calves. He had no circulation going into his calves, so he was cramping.
Which sums up Armour.
Rossi threatened to never play him again, thinking he'd been going out
They're
too
not all
much.
nuclear scientists you're dealing with, Joey. Let me tell you.
So you think he deserves an apology for that one?
No, I actually followed up with Armour. He's the one that told me, nah, you know what? You can't put your garters on properly.
And then
no apology, Armour.
And then the last one, Rossi, is this is one of my favourites. Yeah. So Gary Gibbertson, who was a very good Dow defender for Freo for a long time.
Inspired him. No, he was very creative.
A lot of injuries, Gary.
He did have a lot of injuries. And speaking of injuries, Browny, so Gary Gibberson, so you're playing against the Hawks one day and you hated giving away defensive 50 stoppages. If we conceded a goal,
50 stoppage goals.
Yeah, the opposition forward 50 stoppage. It was red.
A bit like the Billings goal.
Red flag,
I reckon
lock on.
Chris Scott's thinking the same thing this morning.
So,
how about you get goals? Take his left foot, son.
It
was Selwood.
So again,
who was it? Atkins. Sorry, son.
Yeah. So again, first quarter, Luke Bruce is able to waltz his way through a forward 50 stoppage, kick a goal.
You know what? Because I had 17 down there trying to stop it.
Yeah. So Gary Gibberson's conceded the goal. Well, this was just before quarter time. About 5 minutes later, Brownie, Gary Gibberson's been in a big collision, dislocated his shoulder. So quarter time siren goes. Gary Gibberson's got his jumper around and he's holding his shoulder up in a sling.
Sore as a boil.
Yeah. Off. Rossi makes a beeline down from the thing, goes straight out to Gary Gibberson, eyeballs him and says, "Put your shoulder in later. Worry about your shoulder after. Pop it in later. How about you just put some body work on Luke Bruce and stop him kicking some goals?" Poor Gary Gibberson's got his arm in a sling. Doctors surrounding him. Forget about your shoulder.
Oh, you know what? It was grand final day 2013. No, I don't think he played, Gary.
So did you feel bad about that one?
Lovely boy,
That's
Gary.
where men were men,
Lovely
wasn't it?
boy.
That's tough love.
That is tough love from Rossi.
I would have loved to have been coached by Ross, I must admit.
Yeah.
Here in the lap. I would have loved it. I love it.
And the one time, you want to owe me an apology too? You gave me a good spray one
Which
day
one?
at the
What
SCG. I was getting tagged by Kieran Jack. I was struggling to get a hold of it. Kieran
Oh,
Jack,
yes.
and you moved me to the back pocket.
what did I say?
And you told me to go and play in the back pocket to learn to defend. And I stood at fullback the whole game because the Swans were happy to keep me down there. I played on Jared Moore in the goal square. Didn't move. It was the most embarrassing half of footy of my life. I think
said,
you owe me an
Kieran
apology.
Jack. He went on to be a star. I said, mate, you got some hack on you. Get a kick.
That's right. I think you owe me an apology now. That hurt my feelings. I think you owe me an apology.
Well, I'll let you out all night. You went into Oxford Street and finished at 4 a.m. I did my shoelaces up on that. It was a text to me and abusing me at the time.
It's a good version of truth or lie. Well done,
Excellent.
Joey.